What if Anakin Skywalker became a Grey Jedi? Let's start this a couple of years after the Phantom Menace. In the 2016 Obi-Wan Kenobi comics, Anakin admits to Obi-Wan that he wishes to leave the Jedi Order as he feels his path in the Force lies elsewhere. In this comic, he changes his mind and decides to stay in the Jedi Order. However, in this story, we are going to have Anakin stick to his original beliefs and leave the Jedi Order and Obi-Wan behind. Firstly, Anakin would travel back to Tatooine to visit his mother, whom he misses deeply. They hugged when they reunited, and Shmi couldn't believe how big Anakin had grown. He spends a few weeks with them, working on the moisture farm, but ultimately making up for lost time. However, Anakin still has his strong connection to the Force, and feels it in the living things around him, and decides he wants to not only explore the galaxy more, but also his role in the Force. For now, he leaves his mother on Tatooine to travel around the galaxy. He goes to many planets, but his journey will change when he lands on the planet Atalon. When he exits, he feels a connection to the planet, and the Force tells him this. There's something here for him, something important in his journey of the Force. He travels through the natural flora to find an opening, with plants and trees outlining it. He looks at one plant, however, and knows it's out of place. Something isn't right, as it begins to rise into the air to reveal a face, ears, and arms. This was no tree, it was a conscious being strong in the Force. The being introduces himself as the Bendu, and tells Anakin he's surprised he found him, that only someone strong in the Force could, and asks Anakin whether he's a Jedi or Sith. Neither replies Anakin, who tells Bendu he's left the idea of both long behind him. Bendu asks what does the boy want, but Anakin takes longer to reply. What does he want? He wants to do what the Jedi do, help protect the people of the galaxy, but not like the Jedi. He still wants to care and feel for his mother and those around him, and help the people the Republic does not reach. Bendu looks at the boy intrigued and thinks about him. He has the power to fully surpass him in strength, but also has the mindset of someone who could achieve balance in the Force. He sees potential in the young boy, and tells him who he is, the Bendu, a being who lives in neither the light or dark side of the Force, but in the middle. But he's been dormant for some time now, and concealed himself from the wider galaxy, but offers to train Anakin in the ways of the Force, to become a Grey Jedi, and also serve the balance in the middle. A Grey Jedi is someone who did not belong to any Force-based organization, and explored both dark and light sides of the Force, without being corrupted by the dark side. Anakin agrees, and becomes Bendu's apprentice. Anakin's training is long and hard, and Bendu teaches Anakin the fundamentals about both the light and dark side of the Force, and embarked on his journey towards becoming a Grey Jedi. The Bendu recognizes the mix of light and dark in Anakin, foreseeing a destiny that diverged from the traditional Jedi or Sith paths. He taught Anakin to embrace both the light and dark aspects of the Force, without succumbing to their extremes. Through rigorous meditation and unconventional training exercises, Anakin learns to harmonize the conflicting energies within himself. Bendu emphasizes the importance of emotional control, urging Anakin to acknowledge and understand his emotions, rather than suppress them, to use them to his strength. This allowed Anakin to channel his passion, without being consumed by it. Bendu had mastered balance thousands of years ago from his own master, and saw the potential in Anakin. Skywalker learned to wield both the calming serenity of the Jedi, and the fierce determination of the Sith. Bendu takes Anakin to the moons of Tython, Ashla, and Bogan, the representations of the light and dark, to test how well he can handle the pure light and dark side energy flooding into him. Once Anakin achieved this, the Bendu taught him the basics of lightsaber combat, granting him a colorless kyber crystal that turned yellow when he touched it, representing his balance in the Force, and Anakin became a master of this. Although the Bendu taught Anakin that a lightsaber is a crude weapon, and only to be used when absolutely necessary. Force techniques came first, and Anakin learned a mixture of light and dark, and relied heavily on these. Throughout his training, Anakin would visit his mother often on Tatooine to maintain their relationship, and he enjoyed spending some break time with her. His connection to the Force only grew during his training, and after 5 long years, had achieved a deep connection to the Force that rivaled the Bendu himself, and had completely mastered his emotions to achieve balance in the Force. Bendu congratulates Anakin on completing his training, and tells the boy what he does from here on out is his choice, and his alone. Bendu personally doesn't interfere with galactic events, and follows the will of the Force in his own way, but tells Anakin he does not have to share the same fate. Anakin has learned a lot about the Force and galaxy, but also its horrors. During his time in the Jedi Order, he had seen the good it's done by serving some people of the galaxy, but the Order limits itself through its dogmatic and narrow mindset of the Force. But it has a far greater potential. He tells Bendu that he'll change the Jedi Order and turn them into the true peacekeepers of the galaxy. Bendu applauds Anakin on his mission and wishes his apprentice good luck as he disembarks from Atollon and says goodbye to his master for the last time. Anakin goes straight to Coruscant and lands in front of the Jedi Temple. He walks through the main doors and foyer as Jedi all around come to look at him. This being, who's just walked in, extremely strong in the Force. He's stopped by the Gate Master Jorok, who asks Anakin who he is, who tells him and says he's here to meet with the Jedi Council. The council was in session, and Anakin was escorted there personally. The door opens, and he enters to the surprise of the council. None of them recognize him, and he introduces himself as Anakin Skywalker, the prophesized chosen one, returned, fully trained in the Force. He tells them all what he's been doing all these years, learning the true nature of the Force and following the will of the Force, training in both the light and dark sides, achieving balance between both, so that neither light or dark could consume him. He tells them his philosophy in the Force, that in order to achieve one's true potential, they must strive for balance, not solely live in the light and discard their emotions like the Jedi. He speaks about how the Jedi are obsessed with the light and diminishing the dark, as they fear the dark will consume them, but this method of training is incorrect. The way to prevent the darkness from taking over and consuming the soul is to acknowledge one's own darkness, recognize it, but balance it out with the light to prevent either from taking over. He tells them they can all sense the rising darkness that will soon hit the galaxy like a storm, and if the Jedi are to be ready, they must step away from their dogmatic ways of light side obsession, acknowledge the necessity of the darkness within oneself to prevent the true pure darkness of the Sith from taking over. The Jedi Council all look at each other. None are really convinced, especially the long-lasting members, Oppo Rancisis, Yoda, and Yarael Poof. Yoda tells Anakin that they acknowledge his power in the Force, but they cannot change Jedi traditions that have allowed the galaxy to flourish for 1,000 years based on his opinion. Anakin almost chuckled when the Jedi said the word flourish. He tells them the Jedi only care about the core and mid worlds and are ignorant to the unrest and chaos of the Outer Rim. They turn a blind eye to clear corruption in the Senate and completely ignore the crime syndicates which ruin people's lives. He calls the Jedi slaves to the Senate and leaves them with these final words. As Anakin leaves the temple, many Jedi come around to watch him. The prophesized chosen one returned, and Anakin speaks in a loud voice. He tells everyone, the council has lost their way. The Jedi are no longer the true guardians of peace in the galaxy, but the slaves of the Senate. But there is hope. If anyone wished to serve the people and achieve balance of the Force, that he will be starting his own Force order, the Grey Paladins, and anyone is welcome to join. Later that day, Anakin met with Obi-Wan, who was very excited to meet him after all these years, but tells Anakin his return, as well as what he said, has created a stir in the Jedi Order. Many are fed up with the way the council were doing things, and have considered joining him. Obi-Wan asks Anakin what he said to the council, and Anakin recites his speech, which made Obi-Wan laugh and commend Anakin for his confidence, and tells him he sounds like their old master, Qui-gon Jinn. Anakin asks Obi-Wan to join him, that it's what Qui-gon would want, and to help him follow the will of the Force, that he knows what he's saying is true, that the Jedi are too dogmatic, and Qui-Gon knew this all along. And it's time people strong in the Force serve those the Jedi and Republic ignore. After a long conversation, Obi-Wan was convinced and decided to join Anakin. He would help facilitate other Jedi who wanted to join him, and a couple of days later, Anakin had recruited 50 members into the Grey Paladins. Notable Jedi that joined Anakin was Council member Shaak Ti, who was convinced by Anakin, as well as Master Quinlan Vos. The rest were Knights and Padawans, who were convinced by the Chosen One's words. They set up their order in the Outer Rim, and Anakin sets up the training of them all. Most of them have had enough light side training, but they all lack the dark side training that is required for balance. The Jedi has taught them to ignore their emotions, and Anakin has to directly overwrite this, which would take some time. Eventually, after a year of training, Anakin would take them all to Tython's moons, Ashla and Bogan, like his master the Bendu did, and they all completed their training, achieving balance in the Force and the only training they need from here is to increase their strength and power as well as experience. However, during this time, the Clone War began, and the Grey Paladins begin their work. They travel between the war-torn worlds of the Outer Rim, and don't fight for either side, but make sure to protect the people of each planet during battles, and help ensure civilian casualties are kept to a minimum. The Paladins were successful in this. However, they would sometimes fight for either the Republic or Separatist forces, if they thought that either of them were putting the people of the worlds in danger intentionally. They mainly fought against the Separatists in this regard, but got close to sometimes fighting the Jedi, as their philosophies clashed. The war raged on for a couple of years, as the Paladins fulfilled their duty to the people. In this time, Anakin took an apprentice, Ahsoka Tano, who had left the Jedi Order to join the Paladins, and helped her achieve great power through her balance in the Force. Obi-Wan also took an apprentice, a human Cal Kestis, and together they adventured around the galaxy, determined to uphold their duty to the people. Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship flourished during this time. They got along extremely well, and made up for their lost time. The Paladins lost a few members to the war, but overall, the Order remained strong, and made a lot of progress. However, the dark day would come, when Palpatine executed Order 66, and the clones started hunting down the Jedi and Paladins, who were also a threat to Palpatine around the galaxy. Anakin was with half of his Order at the time, when the clones turned on them. They lost a few members initially, but quickly stepped into motion and fought back, defeating all the clones, preventing further casualties. Anakin contacts the rest of his Order to find out there were a few casualties, but orders the survivors to regroup with the main lot to discuss how to move on from here. Only hours pass, and Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Shaak Ti stand in front of the Paladins. They discuss what has occurred and what they felt through the Force, the sudden expansion of the dark side, and shimmering of the light, with the clones ruthlessly hunting down the Jedi. Anakin explains how balance is far from reached, that the dark side has now tipped the balance in its favor, and if they don't act now, it will completely wipe out the light, and balance can never be achieved. Every member of the Paladins board their command ship, and they enter hyperspace to travel towards Coruscant immediately. They arrive and enter the atmosphere to see the Jedi Temple burning, and Anakin can feel the dark and light sides of the Force clashing, and they land in front of it. Anakin decides to assist the Jedi in this scenario, even though they are servants of the light and don't strive for balance. They ultimately strive for peace, whereas the dark side only brings about chaos. The galaxy occupied by the Jedi is better than one controlled by the Sith. Their goal is to assist the Jedi and help defeat the Sith, but Anakin hopes that with the Jedi's genocide, they might realize how their philosophies of the Force were wrong. They enter through the main foyer and are instantly flooded by darkness. Anakin tries to analyze the situation and can tell the foyer is lost, taken over by clones, and knows the Jedi must have retreated deeper into the temple. The Paladins make their way through the army of clones to enter the deeper halls, where they can start assisting the Jedi who are being openly attacked by the clones. Anakin splits up his forces into small groups to cover the widest area, whilst he travels towards the source of the darkness. He, Kenobi, and Shaak Ti arrive at the council chamber to find Palpatine, Dooku, Grievous, Pong Krell, and Barriss Offee fighting against the Jedi Council. 3 council members were defeated, and the remaining 2, Plo Koon and Yoda, are outmatched. Windu was dead alongside Saisi Tin, Agen Kolar, and Kit Fisto, and the rest must be off-world. Anakin instantly casts a Force light across the battlefield to suppress the darkness as the Sith turn back in shock. Palpatine commands the clones into the room to attack, and the Paladins must defend against the onslaught of blaster fire. But Anakin needs to push through fast before the council loses any more members. He breaks free from the clones and goes to attack as Palpatine cuts down Yoda with the help of Grievous, and now only Plo remains. Grievous turns to attack Anakin, who crushes Grievous's chest with the Force and fries his circuit boards with Force lightning to render the droid incapable of fighting, and advances towards Palpatine. Obi-Wan breaks through next to assist Plo Koon in fighting Dooku, while Shaak Ti takes on Barriss Offee and Pong Krell. She made quick work of Barriss, but Krell was a master and would struggle more against him. Anakin focused on Palpatine as he felt the passion burn inside of him, but also the calmness that balanced it out. He attacked the Sith Lord, who took any moment to return fire and went for the Chosen One's life. He hoped Anakin would have been defeated in Order 66, but now he'll have to do it himself. 2 of the strongest Force users in history battling it out. The final duel was legendary, truly one for the ages, in which songs would be written about. But there could be only one victor, and his name was Anakin Skywalker, who broke through the Sith Lord's defenses and cut Palpatine down, whilst remaining balanced in the Force. he looked over to the others to see Shakti standing over Pong Krell and Dooku's body slumping to the ground. Anakin informs the rest of the Paladins of the victory, and he goes to the security room to get a recording of Palpatine with Dooku and Grievous, and presented this to Organa to prove Palpatine's treason and overturned Order 66. However, the damage was done, and the Jedi Order had been reduced to 5% capacity. The Republic Security Council take over the Senate in this transitory period until Bail Organa is elected to become Supreme Chancellor. Anakin meets with him one day, who thanks Anakin profusely for what he's done for the Republic, but Anakin gives Bail a proposition. He wants the Grey Paladins to replace the Jedi, be the Force users that operate around the galaxy to serve the people and maintain peace. But Anakin tells him that they won't be like the Jedi, that they will also work in regions of space not under Republic command, and will have a focus on slavery, crime syndicates, and restoring peace following the war. Organa agrees with this and acknowledges the wrongdoings of the previous government and Jedi Order, and he and Anakin write up a proper agreement and put it into Republic legislation. Anakin takes the Paladins to Tython, where they relocate and begin sending members across the galaxy to help clean up worlds after the war. They started taking in new members, including the surviving Jedi, but also new Force sensitives from all around the galaxy. Anakin had achieved his goal, although it was roundabout. He had created a Force order that strived in balance, followed the will of the Force to serve the galaxy as the guardians of peace and justice. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out what if Anakin was trained in the Force, or what if Anakin never turned to the dark side. Please like and subscribe, and leave your comments below, which I love replying to. Consider becoming a member to the channel to support us, and may the Force be with you.